In this video, we'll go over everything you need to know about Django user authentication, as well as add author information to our posts. Hey everyone, Brad from DevOps Journey here. So we are implementing Django user authentication in this video, and this is one of the core concepts of Django. User authentication is really important with our web applications now, and using the built-in user authentication is something you'll probably do on most of your projects. I'm going to be implementing it on our blog application that we've been playing around with. But if you're just browsing this video, that's fine. You're going to be able to pick up all the core concepts when it comes to user authentication here. So I'm going to get right into the code here. I have Visual Studio Code open, and I'm going to head over to our blog folder, which contains our urls.py. And within urls.py, I'm going to put in one line here. And that's this. Basically, it's a path to accounts, and this is all the built-in authentication stuff. And I'm going to paste in a second thing here, and it's just a comment block that I've copied over from my GitHub. And basically, everything that's being included in the auth URLs is listed here. We have a URL for the login, we have a URL for logout, and then we have a bunch of URLs in regards to password changes and resets. So I can just pull up my blog here, and we can manually test this out by going accounts and then login. And you can see that we are getting an error here, and the error is there is no template for accounts/login, and it's looking for the template at registration/login.html. So what we'll need to do next is create this file. So I'm going to pull over my Visual Studio Code here, and I think the best place to put this in is the website folder under templates, and I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to copy and paste that path here. So it's going to create the folder registration, and it's going to put in the file login.html. So we can see that we have that done here. So that now exists. If I refresh, I get a nice blank page, but I don't have a form for logging in yet. So I'm going to actually have to put something into my template. So let me paste in some code. So the first thing I'm going to do is copy and paste in some basic templating here. And this is similar to all our other HTML files. It's basically bringing in the base.html, it's setting a title, and then we have a block content there. And then within that, I'm going to copy and paste in a very simple form. So we have a heading saying login, and then a form is defined. It's a post method. We're sending the CRF token, which I mentioned before is just a unique token, so you can't do replay attacks. You're going to need to include this for all forms that have the post method. And then the real chunk of code that's doing the heavy lifting here is this one that says form.asp. And that's basically just going to bring in the form. That's all you really need to understand about it. So let's pull this up and refresh, and I can just put in my credentials here, and let's try to log in. And now we are getting another error. It looks like when you log in by default it redirects you, and it's trying to redirect me to accounts/profile, but that URL pattern doesn't exist. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to change it so when you log in, it's going to redirect us to the welcome page instead. So let's go ahead and do that. We do that by hopping into the blog folder, and it's actually in the settings file. And I'm just going to go to the bottom here, and I'm going to define two settings, and those settings are login_redirect _URL equals, and I'm just going to say that for now, and then I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to say logout redirect URL equals, and then I'm going to say home for both of these. And basically what this does is when you log in, it's going to redirect you to home. when you log out, it's going to redirect you to home. And it doesn't need to be home, it can be any URL pattern you have. So URL redirecting is very important. It's going to be something you always include in your application. So make sure to remember that that's defined in your settings.py file, and it's a very simple 1 to 2 lines of code to do that. Now that we have that defined, let's go ahead and test it out. I'm gonna go back here. Oh, and it looks like I'm getting an error. Let's restart the server. Sometimes when you're typing it in, the server crashes because you haven't fully declared the value, so it thinks it's a bad value. So the server has restarted. Let's refresh, and we're at our login page. So I'm logged in, and it's redirected me to my home page. But now that I'm logged in, I don't really have this feel of being logged in. So that's what we should do next. Let's add in the login button, and when you're logged in, let's change it to a logout button. So to do that, let's modify our top navigation bar to include a login link if we're not logged in, and if we are logged in, let's change it to a logout link. So let's hop into our code editor, and we want to go under website, templates, and then topmenu.html. And then once we open that here, I want the login/logout link to come in after my YouTube link, so I'll put it at the end here. And I want to put in an if statement. So I'm going to need a couple of these. And I'll say if something else and if. So within here, the something I want to check for is if the user is logged in, and to do that is very simple. We just do user.is_authenticated, and if the user is authenticated, we want to show a logout button because the user's already logged in, they're authenticated, we want them to have the ability to log out. Now if they are not authenticated, that's going to hit the else statement, so we want it to show the login button. So let's go ahead and refresh. We'll hop back into our page, and we can see that it says logout, meaning I must be authenticated. Now let's change that into a button. So I got some buttons here. And my login one, I want it to be success, and for this one to be danger. And these are just bootstrap classes. Danger means red, success is green, so my login button will be green. Let's have a look at this quickly. Okay, that looks good. Now let's actually put in the href, and for the href, I'm going to do my URL and it's going to be login, and then I'll copy this and put it down here, and the name of that one is logout, and these are just the default names for login and logout for Django. So that looks good. Let's go ahead and refresh, and let's hit the button, and it looks like it logged out. Actually, I think I messed that up. Yeah, I put in the wrong order, so let's fix that. I'm sure most people caught that as I was pasting it in. Let's go ahead and hit logout, and now it shows login. If I hit login, type in my name, So that looks good. Another thing that you might want to do is you might want to show the user that is logged in, like a username. So to do that is pretty simple. I'm just going to do, under my user dot is authenticated, I'm going to put the user dot username, and this will show my logged in username, and I can see it looks good there. Let me go ahead and add a nice little icon here. So let me grab this money one and I'll change it to user. This is Font Awesome if you haven't used it before. So that is set now. Let's refresh so we can see Brad is logged in. And I don't really like the way that it's sort of sitting up top. I'm going to add in an HTML element here called span and just set the class to nav item, nav link, and then end it here. And I think this will align it a lot nicer than it is. And yeah, it looks nicer and it's got the nice color scheme. And let's actually add a space after the icon. There we go. And if I didn't like that it's in lowercase and I want it in uppercase, I could go in here and I could convert this to upper, and it's basically taking in this variable and converting it to upper. So if I refresh, I can see that, yeah, my name is coming up in uppercase. So that looks good. The next thing we want to do is get an author to show up on all our posts. So I will show you how to do that next. So I'm back in my code editor here, and since I want to add an author to my post objects, I'm going to head on over to the post folder, and then under there I'm going to go to my models. And I can see my post class here, it only has a title and a body right now. So what I'm going to do is set an author, and the type of model for author is going to be a foreign key. And if you're not really familiar with foreign keys, it's basically a database concept for referencing an attribute in a different table. So we're going to be referencing objects in the user table. So within the parameters of the foreign key, I'm going to say user, and then I'm going to set another attribute here, which is onDelete equals models.cascade, and cascade should be all capitals. And basically it's saying if you delete the user, all their posts are going to get deleted. Now the next thing I need to do is I need to import this class. So I'm going to do from Django, and then do .contrib .auth .models import user. And basically this is just the built-in auth module for Django. So that should be enough to get started, but since we've made a change to our model, this needs to now be replicated to our database through a migration. So I'm gonna go into my terminal here, and I'll Control C out of this server, and then I'm going to do Python manage and do make migration. And it should detect that there's been changes, but it doesn't like something here. It has no attribute foreign key, and that's because I am being a little bit dyslexic again and mistyping things. So foreign key is now spelled correctly. So I'll try again, and it wants make migrations, not make migration. So we'll try again, and now it's asking me for some input. And it's basically saying you're trying to add an author without setting a default. So it's basically saying all your current posts, none of them have authors yet, but it needs an author. So you need to set the default. Now what's the default going to be? It needs to be the user ID. So just to quickly show how you can get the ID of your username, just run python manage db shell, and this will bring you into your database. And then from there you can look at all the tables that exist, and the table that we're interested in is auth.user, and I will go select ID, comma, username from auth_user. So it's going to grab the ID and then the username. And we can see Brad has the user ID of 1. So I want all the posts that currently exist in the system to have the author of Brad. I'm going to go here and I'm going to set default equals 1. So the default user will be 1. Now I'm going to go exit. Now I'm going to try to create the migration again. And that recreated the migration. Then we're going to go migrate. And we can see that it has been migrated. And now all the posts currently have an author. Let's go ahead and see what it looks like. So I'm going to start my server again. And then I'm going to open my blog. And I can see that no author is showing up here. I need to make sure that that value is displayed on my template. So I'm going to go into welcome. So I'm going to go into my welcome page, which is underneath my website folder and templates, and I'm going to add a horizontal rule, and then I'll do another p tag, and then within that I'm going to say the author, and then I'll say post.author, since that's the name of the attribute that we added in the post model. Now, one thing coming up with our blog is this looks good on the home page, but when I go into the post, it's still displaying the old way. So let's actually make a change here. And the change we're going to make is I'm going to create a template that just contains this, and then my detail page as well as my welcome page is going to reference that template. It's part of the dry model, which is do not repeat yourself, which programmers, wives, girlfriends, and mothers all have in common. They don't like to repeat themselves. So as a programmer, I don't like to repeat myself as well, so I'm going to get everything into the same file here. I'm going to cut this, and then I'm going to go under post templates. I'm going to create a new file, and I'll call it post.html, and I will paste in there, and underneath my details I'm going to take this out, and I'm actually going to take this delete post in and put it underneath my my post template. So I'll put it in there, and then go back to detail, and I'm just going to do an include tag. So I'll say include post.html, and I'll copy this, and I want to put this back into my welcome page as well. So that looks good. Now the way the posts display on the welcome page, as well as when you actually go into an individual post, will display the same. The only difference is going to be that the welcome page has a for loop that iterates over every single post. So let's go ahead and refresh. So I'm getting an error here. It doesn't like something with this include tag, and I think I see what the issue is. I did 2 curly brackets, which is a way to display a variable, but when you actually have logic in there, it shouldn't be 2 curly brackets. It should be 1 curly bracket and a %sign. So if we change that, and then I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to put that into my detail template, and then paste it here. That should fix it for both pages. If I go in and refresh, it looks good, and you can see that we have the author now with the delete post button, and we can go into an individual post and it displays exactly the same as it does on the home page. Now there's a delete button here. We'll look into adding logic so only the author can delete, but there's a few other things that I want to go over first. So we might save that for the next video. But one thing that we should do is check out our post page. And when we go there, I notice that the button at the top is not working. So I'm actually just going to pause the video and fix these home buttons. So I opened up topmenu.html and my href tags were missing, so I re-added them in here. I have the URL home set to home and then post set to new, and then there was a pricing button which we don't need, so I took that out. And then this is set as Twitter. I actually want this as YouTube. So now let's go back into our page and refresh, and we can see our home link is working. And when we go to post, we get the create post menu. But one thing you notice here is we have a title, we have a body, and then it's asking us for author. Now we don't want to be able to select from a list to choose the author. We always want the author to be the user that is currently logged in. So let's go ahead and make a change to our form. If I go back into our code here, I want to go under post and then forms. And then I want to exclude some fields here. So I'll go exclude equals, and this is going to be a tuple. So I'll say author. And since this is a single value tuple, you need to add a comma. And this is just basic Python syntax for tuples. You can look up the reasoning why online, but if you have this line in your form now, it should now exclude that field from being. If I go back in and refresh, we see that it's not working. Let's Control C and run our server again. And I think it should work now. So let's refresh, and you can see that you can no longer set an author. So let's go ahead and try to create a post. And you can see that the post has been created. Now keep in mind, just hiding the author field from the post form isn't the only thing you should do to make a secure application. You'll want to do some sort of check in your view to make sure the author is set to a certain value, as well as use some form validations. We're not going to go over that in this video, but we'll probably implement that in a later video. For this video, I want to just stick with user authentication. So the next thing I think we should cover is making it so you need to be logged in to see certain pages. So let's go back into our blog and log out. And when we're logged out, let's go to post. Now, in a real application, it doesn't make sense that you would be able to go to the post field if you are not logged in. So let's implement a little bit of security here. So I'm going to go back into the code editor, and I'm going to go under my views. And for creating a new post, we have this function right here. And what I want to add in here is a decorator. And that decorator is going to be login underscore required. And basically it's saying you need to be logged in to use this page. And if you're not, it's going to redirect you. And then we see we're getting this login required is not defined. So that means we need to actually import this. So I'm going to copy and paste this from django.contrib.auth.decorators import login underscore required. So that should be enough. Let's restart our server here. And it looks like the server is restarted. Let's refresh. And we're back in. Now when we go to post, it's asking us to. So I think I'm going to leave it there. This video is going on a little longer than I wanted to, but there was a lot of core concepts that we needed to cover. In the next video, I'm going to show you how we can create a register page so we don't have to use the built-in Django script to create users. Users will be able to log on to our website, hit a register button, and create their account that way. So I think it's really important for anyone learning a Django app to implement a registration page, so please join me for that video. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, and I hope to see you in the next video.